Hey guys, welcome to another Let's Build with Tailwind CSS. This is the next addition to the series, which is just two parts at this point. So we're going to just focus more on singular components as opposed to like full layouts and stuff until we get into that later on in this series. Kind of just gradually get more advanced as we go. The concept of this video is the Dribbble Shot, and I actually work here by day, so it's a fun app to work on. But the concept of the shot, there's quite a few formats of the shot. So there's small, large, small without info, and large without info. So this can all be toggled dependent on that. I'm going to choose this version. So we have a basic shot, and then when you hover over, there's actions present, and then a little bit about the shot as well. And then there's some metadata here as well, like comments, number of likes, and the number of views. So we're going to hook into all that with Tailwind CSS. I ended up getting pretty close with the concept. It's not perfect to the native Dribbble Shot, but it's pretty close based on just the defaults that Tailwind ships with. You could configure Tailwind to use exactly what you need, but since this is all served from the CDN at this point, I can't quite customize it. But we'll get into more of how you could customize that later on as we extend the framework and download it into a local project that's built with Webpack and whatnot. So as you can see, as you hover, you get those actions and kind of the same concepts in place. I did steal some icons from the Dribbble source, so we'll use those as well as just some hacks for this animation, because that stuff isn't native to Tailwind at this time, but we could enhance it. So give you a quick scan of the source code. It looks a little janky, looks a lot messy, but that's kind of the concept of the utility first approach. So there will be a lot of classes and whatnot in your code, but it makes a difference when it comes time to actually build stuff, so you can move a lot faster and get the same end result. We did have to harness a few custom styles, like the Dribbble gray itself was a different color that I wanted to kind of continue on, so we just applied a new class for that, just kind of its own utility class. The shot meta stuff is the actual hover bit that's coming into view. So this stuff, I'm targeting that with just some hover effects and animations and whatnot as we hover in on the shot. So let's kick things off. I'm going to actually source a specific shot just because this is no rhyme or reason behind it, but it's just the one I chose. We'll initially need the image in mention here, so I'm going to actually view source and grab it real quick, and then I'll create a new pin. I'll call this Tailwind CSS Dribbble Shot. I'll probably update that after the video is over, but for now that's fine. And we'll start with an initial image source just to get that on the screen. Okay, and I'll reference that shot too if you guys want to reference the exact same one. And let's go to that tab. There we go. Save that down. Okay, so we don't need JavaScript, and we'll continue with CSS, but for now I'm going to keep it pretty minimal on the screen there. So let's first make sure the shot's equal proportions the way we want it to look. So I'm going to start with the initial kind of wrapping class around it, but first we want to style the body a bit just to give it an off-white color. So we'll go wrap everything in that. And you don't necessarily need a body attribute in the code pen space, but it is one that I'm going to add just so we can target it. And we'll do initial kind of reset there, so it'll be kind of an off-white. For this will actually work though, we actually need the Tailwind source. So let's go to our CSS, and maybe I'll grab it from my original project just because it's quicker. So this here, I'm going to use the beta version at this time too. So I'll save that down, and we should see stuff update at this point. This needs to be a 200 though. So there it kind of goes off-white. Okay, so the main thing I want to do is wrap this in a container and then kind of just position it centered on the screen. So I'm going to use Emmet to kind of do this automatically. So we'll say auto and MY6 to kind of give it some offset from the top and bottom. Save that down. See, oh, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so the main Dribbble shot, we're gonna have a div around it. Let's just make a div class. Tons of classes here. So border gray. I'm gonna give it a light gray, so 300-ish. Rounded. shadow, and we'll set just a definitive width and a background of white. Kind of give it that Polaroid look once we get it wrapped around this image. And then padding top 3, padding left 3, padding right 3, relative, cursor pointer, and margin auto. So that will end up looking like so. So that kind of gives us the initial shot Polaroid look, like the kind of thumbnail screenshot that I'm after. We need some extra stuff on the bottom, so I'm leaving out the padding for that at this point. That'll be its own kind of dedicated row. So on the image itself, we can have the class of the title of the image, or alt, excuse me. So it's a photo sharing, or photo service landing page. Awesome. It has a few classes, nothing crazy, more or less just to make it responsive. Image tags in the new Tailwind version 1 need a class of inline to kind of respond to like centering and stuff. Max width full, just for responsiveness, width full, and then height auto. Cool. So below the image, we'll keep the actual, this will be the main shot container. So we'll eventually reference this as a Dribbble Shot. In fact, I'll just add that class for now, just to give it that signifier. We'll need it for when we hover over it coming up. Basic flex container at this point that's going to have all the other analytics around the shot. Justify. We'll float those to the end on the right side. Item center. Padding top equals 1. Padding bottom equals 2. So then that gives us that padding we're after, but the reason for that is we're going to have all those like icons with data associated with it. I'm going to use span tags for those. So we're going to start with this text XS, make it really small. And within the span, we're going to have the main number of the analytics. So in this case, this first one's going to be views. And I'm going to say, what was it, 9,851. Cool. And it's going to have a slight margin left of 1. So we need to actually get the image source of the view count. I don't think it's on this view, but we could grab it from this screen. So I'm going to actually view source and see if we can grab it. Image hover link. I'm on the wrong shot. This one. So there is the extras, shots with actions, tool, shots. Let's see if we can find, there we go. So the favorites, the views is what I'm after. So let's see if there is a background image. There is. So there's an actual legit image for this one, not an SVG at this time. That's just fine. We'll have to kind of hook into that. Let's go to the shot there. So I'm going to insert this image. Paste that in. It's going to be huge, but we can doctor that up. So we'll give it a class with 4. Oops. 4. And just say alt equals views. Cool. Some fine tuning on that span. We need the flex property. We'll shift the items to the center and then give a margin right for the next upcoming icon. The span class will need to actually associate a new gray color that I mentioned prior. So I'm going to just get that class in the scope of things. So I'm going to call it Dribbble gray and just set a color attribute of AAA. And we'll pass that in on each span. So Dribbble gray. There we go. So now that icon and the text is actually kind of lined up. Looks like we need some margin on this bit. Let's see. Flex item center, margin right. Oh, that's why it's not working. I spelled class wrong. There we go. So we got that little offset. So that's looking good. We're kind of going to duplicate that pattern now for the comments. So this one, I believe it's kind of a little bit of a trickier thing because this is an old school kind of comment image. So you'll notice when I go view source here, click on that, we'll get this other image where it used to be to get the different effects on hover or a different state, you would actually modify the background position and display the icon accordingly. Well, in our case, we need to kind of go crazy and modify this whole thing with some CSS to kind of hack that approach, simply because I want to use the real icon. I don't want to have to actually find my own. Okay, so span. This should be wrapping the comment. And let's go get that source file again. Sorry, I was on the whole wrong tab there for a second. Let's code life. Okay, so the span's going to have a class, just a dedicated class of Dribbble comment. And we'll target that with actual CSS too. It's kind of its own thing. So I want to actually give it a set height since we only want this certain icon to appear. I'm going to set an overflow hidden on that span. So we clip it, and then the image within will end up being background size. Size is 1259, which is the original size, but we're going to set a width on it of 12 pixels. So when you set that cap of height on the span, you only see that top image anyway, so it ends up working the way we want. So it's going to have 9 comments. Very good. And then after that, we'll have a very similar approach as the first one for the hearts or likes. This one will be a SVG, so we can go grab that too. We won't need the image by any means. In fact, I'll just remove that for now. I'll go view source on that, just the shot. We can get the heart actually from the same button there if we want. So this icon, I believe I can steal. So copy outer HTML, paste that into our view here. There we go. So it's giant, but that's okay. We want to make it a class of, let's see, W3, height 3, fill current. Cool, so that gives us that color. We'd set that Dribbble gray color, so this fill current class notices that and knows to go set parent containing div, or in this case span, to the same color. It's a really cool property. So I think there was 758 comments, or likes, excuse me. Let's double check. Why is that offset there? Margin right 2. I don't think I need this yet anyway. Yeah, so let's roll with that. And below this entire div, we're going to have the shot meta, which is the stuff that's basically going to display on hover. So this will be kind of custom too, in the sense of what you can do in terms of animation on hover with Tailwind. But we'll say I'm going to give it that class Dribbble Shot meta to start with. Then we'll have some basic styles around it, absolute. And padding, top and bottom just a tad, background of white with full, left 0, bottom 0, rounded bottom, px3, so padding on left and right of 3, flex, and we don't need anything else. Item center, justify between. Within that, we'll have a flex1 property. So flex1, this will kind of span the whole row. And we'll initially display the shot title. So this will be class, text small, font bold, margin 0, letting none. And then the shot itself is photo sharing or photo service landing page. So at the moment it's right way at the bottom of our screen because we need some relativeness set on the actual shot, which I think I forgot. Yeah, I spelt it wrong. So rel, glad that actually happened so I could double check. So this should be relative to the shot now. CSS magic there. Okay, so within that span below that, we're gonna have the kind of date stamp or timestamp on when it was posted. Use that Dribbble gray class again, letting none. And we'll say April 2nd, 2019. Cool. So as you can see, it's taken over the view of where those analytics were. So we'll have to deal with that hover state. Okay, below that's going to be the next div. That's going to be the actions on the shot. So we can say save or like in this case. So it'll be text gray 700, text small, font bold, flex. We're going to have a couple buttons. So they're both going to be links, and they're not going to go anywhere right now, but they definitely do on the app. So then say padding Y1, just a slight up and bottom padding on the right and left, VG white, rounded, border gray 300, hover shadow. So there'll be a slight shadow on hover. Hover will also have a darker border. And flex item center. So this will be, let's see, save. So there's the initial button. See its hover state. Pretty cool. Now I need the same thing, but a like button. Now this one's a little trickier because we have to incorporate an icon now too. So I'm going to actually go grab that same SVG we used here, bring it down from that, and put like. I'll just put that in there for now. So on the SVG, we want a little margin on the right so it's not so right up against everything. And finally, we'll say like. Cool. So then the top link needs a little margin on the right still. So I'll just do like 2 maybe. Yeah, there we go. Awesome. Okay, so what I want to do in terms of interaction, we're very close to being done already, but the interaction I want is on the hover of the shot. I want to display this row instead of having it display right now by default, because we want to show the analytics first, just kind of native to what the app is doing at this time. So this is way smoother in my opinion, which is awesome, but with this we can get pretty close. So I'm going to go in and add some custom CSS just for this purpose. So we're going to actually target the shot meta class I added prior. So it's on the actual shot meta row, this whole thing right here. So we'll say Dribbble Shot meta. And we're going to give it a defined height because we need to animate the height a bit. Transition. This could be tighter and definitely smoother, but I just ended up here, so feel free to tweak it. So you can do multiple transitions on one line here with CSS. It's kind of nice. And then opacity 0. That should make it go away. There we go. So on hover of the shot, since we added that class to the actual Dribbble Shot container, now we can hook into that and give it a hover state. So Dribbble Shot, and we can just do traditional CSS here. So hover, and then we can target that same Dribbble meta class. If I can spell shot. So then when that shot is hovered over, we can do actions based on that interaction. So 50 pixels will kind of scale the height a little bit. will change. It's kind of a nice property to use for certain browsers just so they know a transition is going to fire. Transition, and then transition opacity 0.1 seconds ease, height 0.2 second ease, and then opacity will be 1 in this case, because we'll go from nothing to full blown in your face. So then you see what we end up with here. So pretty cool. All Tailwind for the most part. I mean, I reach for custom CSS when I need specific colors, or I modified Tailwind directly. When we get into like actually serving it ourselves, like this is CDN still, so we can't do a lot with it. In terms of customizations, this is, you know, very little CSS I had to add to get to where we're at already. Now, by no means is this completely responsive at this point, but as you can see, it's kind of crazy. But it's an initial start, so you could tune this up to be way more responsive than it is at this point. So with, instead of like with 1/3, we could say large width 1/3, and then just say width full, and it should just go full on mobile. If I could scale the browser here, yeah, there we go. So then it just kind of does what we want. Kind of nice. And maybe we'll do a little padding on the container just so when it does go down to mobile, it's got a little gap. Certainly could be improved. I'll leave that to you to do, but hopefully that was helpful. As promised, we'll get into more complicated layouts and structure and stuff for components and stuff coming up. I wanted to do a few things in the CDN approach just so you can get your hands dirty and see if you like the framework or not. So hopefully this guide, practice, pattern, whatever you want to call it that I've employed here is helpful. Let me know if you have any comments on the video or blog, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace.